Batman Arkham City, Origins, and Night all had story DLC. Most of it's great because it gives more story to some of the characters and to the overall Arkham series. In this video, I will be ranking all of the Batman Arkham Story DLC. First, as an honorable mention, I have Initiation. I almost didn't include this because it's a challenge map, but it technically is story DLC, so I put it on here as an honorable mention. This is also the only one I didn't play much of because I don't play challenge maps. But it is cool that we could play as Bruce Wayne when he was training and see that backstory. At number 10, I have Catwoman's Revenge from Arkham Knight. So Arkham Knight had the most story DLC out of all the Arkham games, but most of the story DLC were shorter story packs, and I think this is the worst one. In this story pack, Catwoman goes and gets revenge on Riddler for what he did to her in the main game. The stealth sections in this aren't great, mainly because Catwoman isn't a good character to play as for stealth. Her playstyle in combat though is fun and different. This also isn't the first time we get to play as Catwoman in the Arkham games, but we'll get to that later. The end fight with the robots is also not that great, but originally I thought it was worse. When I first played this DLC, I didn't finish it and I stopped on that robot fight because I thought it was too hard and didn't feel like doing it at the time. But when I went back to finish it later on, it wasn't too hard to beat and I finished it pretty quickly. But it still isn't great, and it's still my least favorite of all the story DLC. At number 9 is GCPD Lockdown, which is the small story pack in Arkham Knight for Nightwing. I love Nightwing as a character, and I love playing as him in this, but it's not the best. This takes place after the main game, and Penguin is trying to break out of GCPD, so Nightwing is trying to stop him. And this mainly takes place inside of GCPD, with some parts outside on the roof and at Bloodhaven docks. And you can go outside on the GCPD sign to go to the different levels of the station. And that is the main stealth section. There's just a lot of enemies everywhere, and it's kind of hard to take them all down and be stealthy. Especially since there are some different enemy types like the minigun guy, and I just don't like stealth that much. There is a cool part where they reference the Nightfall Protocol and we get to see the destroyed bat signal. So there are some cool moments in this DLC, and I like playing as Nightwing, but I just don't really like that main stealth section in the GCPD, and the rest of it's just okay. At number 8 is the Harley Quinn story pack from Arkham Knight, and it's another smaller story pack. This one takes place not too long before the main game, and Harley Quinn breaks into the Bloodhaven Police Department to recruit Poison Ivy to be a part of Scarecrow's plan to destroy Batman. Harley Quinn's playstyle is definitely different and unique, and her version of Detective Mode, which is apparently called Psychosis Mode, is interesting and it's more colorful. Also, the overall style is different and more psychotic than other playable characters, which makes sense because she is a more different character. Stealth is also not as simple and easy to do because she doesn't have silent takedowns and only has loud takedowns. So stealth is less prevalent here. In combat, she also uses her bat a lot, which makes it a little more brutal, and sometimes you can activate Mayhem mode, which allows you to take down a lot of enemies, kind of like the fear takedowns for Batman, but you can move around more freely to attack the enemies. She has some cool gadgets like the Jack-in-the-Box, which could lead nearby enemies to it and it would explode. There is a boss fight with Nightwing at the end, and this one was a little difficult for me, especially since Harley Quinn has no armor, which is not much health, and you have to fight off police officers as well. So this DLC was one of the most different out of all of them, and her playstyle is cool, but some things I did not like. Like the Nightwing boss fight at the end was okay, and the fact that she didn't have silent takedowns was kind of annoying, but it did make sense with her character. And number 7 is A Flip of a Coin, which is also from Arkham Knight and another one of those shorter DLCs. This one is focused on Robin after the main game, and he is hunting down Two-Face at Hell's Gate Disposal Services. This isn't the first time Robin is a playable character, as you play as him in Harley Quinn's Revenge DLC from City, which we will get to soon, and he is pretty similar here. The disposal place is a cool location, especially with the giant fire pit in the middle, and it also ties into the Two-Face side mission from the main game, where he is robbing banks with trash trucks. The court building is also a cool location, with half of it being burned because, you know, Two-Face. Also, the combat and stealth encounters there are cool and unique, and at the end you fight a lot of guys and Two-Face is taken out easily. But I just like the gameplay of this one and the story of how this is kind of a sequel to the Two-Face side mission, more than the other DLC on this list before this. But there's nothing too special about this one. At number 6 is the Catwoman story pack from Arkham City. Now this is a different and unique story DLC because it's integrated throughout the main story, which means at certain points throughout the game, you will be switched to Catwoman and play a part of her story and what she is doing at the moment. Poison Ivy also appears in her part of the story and only in her part of the story. She doesn't appear at all in the main game for Arkham City. Catwoman also has her own Riddler trophies that are pink and only she can pick them up. And after the main story is done, there are character switch points on the map and you could switch between her and Batman. There's a cool part in this where you have a choice. You can either save Batman or leave Arkham City, and if you choose to leave, the game shows an ending where Batman loses and things don't end up great. But after, it takes you back to that choice and you can make the right choice. Like I said before, her combat is fun to play with her different moves, but her stealth isn't the best. Her traversal was also not that good, where you had to jump from point to point. It was just slower than Batman and I could never get the timing right. What I really don't like is the final boss fight with Two-Face, where he has a bunch of henchmen, but you can never defeat all of them because when you defeat some, more appear. So after I figured out you can't defeat all the henchmen and clear the room, I just ignored them and went straight for Two-Face and attacked him until I defeated him. So for the most part, this is a fun extra part to the main story, but that Two-Face boss fight at the end is really bad. Number 5 is the Red Hood story pack for Arkham Knight, and this is my favorite of those smaller story packs. In this DLC, which takes place after the main game, Red Hood is going after Black Mask, and that's really all there is to the story. It's just him looking for Black Mask. There is mention of him killing Killer Moth, which is a neat detail, but I might have actually liked to see that, or to just see Killer Moth in this series in general. There is a boss fight with Black Mask, and the fight is okay, there isn't anything special to it, but at the end he is supposedly killed by Red Hood. There is speculation that it was a double and that Black Mask didn't actually get killed there because he is known for having body doubles before, like in Origins. It doesn't matter too much, but I like the idea that he didn't die because he was kinda done dirty in this DLC and the whole Arkham series. But what I really like about this DLC is playing as Red Hood because he has a very different playstyle with him using guns and not caring about killing people. His fighting style is just pretty cool. This DLC overall is really short and I would have liked to see more story with Red Hood, but I do like what we got, even though it wasn't much. Number 4 is Harley Quinn's Revenge, which is the main DLC for City. This takes place right after the main game and it explores how Joker's death affected Batman and Harley Quinn, and that was a good idea for the story. It also makes Robin the main playable character, which was nice. The story is pretty simple. Harley Quinn wants revenge for Joker's death. The story also plays with time, with you switching from Robin to Batman to see what happens earlier in the story. At the end, a building blows up and Batman thinks Robin is dead, and then obviously he isn't and saves Batman, which is a nice moment. The fight against Harley isn't that special and most of the combat encounters are alright, but Robin is a good switch up from Batman and fighting people with his staff and new gadgets is fun. Number 3 is A Matter of Family, which is a longer DLC for Arkham Knight that features Batgirl and takes place before Arkham Asylum. In this DLC, it was nice to explore some of Barbara Gordon's story while she was Batgirl, which is something we haven't seen in the Arkham games before this point. For the story, Batgirl and Robin team up to save Commissioner Gordon, who is kidnapped, and the main villains are Joker and Harley Quinn again, which we see all the time within these games, but they are always great, and their costumes in this DLC are nice, with Harley's being her classic costume. I also think the setting for this DLC is fun, that being an amusement park, with you saving some hostages at some of the rides. And at the end you fight Joker and Harley, and this isn't the best boss fight, but it's still fun. Batgirl's playstyle also isn't that unique, but it's still nice to play as her for this, and all the gameplay is good as usual. Number 2 is Season of Infamy from Arkham Knight. And this is different from the others because instead of just being another regular story pack, it adds 4 new side missions for previous villains from the games, and gives them some closure. The 4 villains are Mr. Freeze, Ra's al Ghul, Killer Croc, and Mad Hatter. My favorite of the 4 is definitely In From the Cold. Mr. Freeze's character was so well done throughout all of the games, and this story for him is a really good end for his character, with him and Nora going to spend her final days with each other. My second favorite is Shadow War, where you get to make a decision at the end to either cure Ra's al Ghul or not, and I really like this decision. I chose not to cure him, and I like what this choice does with Raz's character, and I like his final line. My third favorite is Beneath the Surface, and this explores Killer Croc's character more, with him being experimented on worsening his condition, and it actually makes you feel sorry for him. My least favorite is Wonderland with Mad Hatter. This isn't bad, but the story isn't as impactful for me as the others. There is a cool fight at the end though, with this pop-up book setting where you fight previous enemies from the past Arkham games. All 4 of these missions are fantastic and are some of the best and most meaningful stories of the entire Arkham universe. And number 1 is Cold Cold Hard from Arkham Origins, and this is my favorite DLC from my favorite game. Like I said before, Mr. Freeze's character is really well done in these games, and this DLC shows his origin. It also fits the winter theme that the main game had. I really enjoyed this story. You get to play as regular Bruce Wayne for a little bit in Wayne Manor, and I love the investigation scene where you see Freeze's origin. The boss fight with Freeze at the end isn't my favorite, but it's still alright, and I like at the end when you break out of the ice and save him. We also get a new suit with the XE suit, and this is a very cool variant bat suit and makes sense for the story. It also comes with heat gloves and heat batarangs, which are cool gadgets. This is just an overall great DLC with one of my favorite stories in the Arkham games. So that was my ranking for all of the Arkham games story DLC. The DLC for these games are so well done and are great additions to the main games. But anyway, that's all I have to say. See you next time, goodbye.